Dear friends, welcome to another episode in the fantastic world of the military. In this video, we will talk about the announcement of the creation of 2 new armies and several Russian brigades, which together will total more than 500,000 new soldiers. But where does Putin intend to find so many soldiers? And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, subscribe now and activate the notification bell to not miss any updates. On Wednesday, March 20th, Sergei Shoigu, Russian Minister of Defense, announced during a meeting with the Russian General Staff a massive increase in Russia's military capacity. According to Shoigu, by the end of 2024, Russia will create 2 new combined arms armies, 14 complete divisions, and 16 brigades. In Russia, a combined arms army is typically composed of 8 to 12 brigades distributed among logistics support brigades, armored infantry, rockets, and air defense brigades. After the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, virtually all Russian divisions were dissolved and converted into brigades. But since 2013, many divisions have been reactivated, with the army currently maintaining 10 divisions. The Russian Air Force operates 4 others, and the Strategic Missile Force, 12. However, with regard specifically to the army, Russian divisions are essentially motorized infantry, artillery, or armored, with the composition of each varying greatly. Typically, they consist of 6 to 8 battalions that can be engineering, medical, logistics, and reconnaissance, reinforced with regiments of armored vehicles, rockets, motorized infantry, and air defense. Since the exact composition of each unit varies greatly, it is difficult to say precisely how many soldiers Russia will need to fill the 2 combined arms armies, 14 divisions and 16 brigades announced by Minister Shoigu. But, based on the composition of current units, we can estimate that Russia will need at least 250,000 and at most just under 770,000 new soldiers to compose all these units. But where will Russia find so many soldiers? The most obvious answer would be through partial or total mobilization. But these are tremendously unpopular procedures. In fact, when partial mobilization was decreed in Russia in September 2022, aiming to recruit 300,000 soldiers, almost 300,000 Russians fled the country, of which nearly 200,000 have not yet returned, fearing reprisals. In other words, to recruit 300,000 soldiers, Russian civil society lost, in addition to the 300,000, called up another 200,000 who fled and have not returned, all of them economically active. If so many fled to recruit 300,000, recruitment of up to 770,000 could lead to a colossal exodus. In December 2023, Minister Shoigu reported that about 500,000 men voluntarily enlisted, signing contracts of up to 1 year with the Russian armed forces to fight in the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Therefore, we can assume that at least some of these volunteers will be used to fill the new Russian units, but we do not know how many, as it is impossible to have an approximate notion of the number of casualties. In other words, we do not know how many of those 500,000 soldiers who voluntarily joined the Russian army in 2023 are still alive today to be reassigned to the new units announced by Minister Shoigu. But, beyond all this, we also do not know whether Russia's goal is to create these new units from scratch or to involve the redeployment of troops currently stationed in other units. In his statement, Minister Shoigu emphasized that these are new units, so we can deduce that they will be filled with new soldiers who are not yet in the Russian armed forces, which brings us back to the title question of the video. How will Russia manage to recruit so many new soldiers? One option is to reinforce voluntary recruitment campaigns, with one way of doing this involving, for example, higher salaries and greater rewards to encourage young people to go to war. Another option could be to increase the recruitment of prisoners, a practice initiated in Russia in 2022 during the times of the Wagner Group mercenaries, and is now also used by the Russian armed forces. Through this procedure, Russian prisoners are given the option to have their sentences completely forgiven, provided they return alive after a 1-year deployment in Ukraine. Based on the terrible conditions of Russian prisons, this is an option that, according to various sources, has ensured a constant flow of thousands of new recruits to the Russian armed forces every month. However, if this is not enough, Putin will have no choice but to proceed with a new mobilization. This was not done in 2023 because, being terribly unpopular, it could affect Putin's re-election. But now, After Putin achieved over 87% of the votes after removing all his main opponents, consolidating his dictatorship, he has a clear path to advance unpopular measures, such as partial mobilization. With special salaries and rewards, Russia managed to attract, according to Shoigu, around 500,000 new voluntary recruits. However, if the goal is to attract 770,000, there is no guarantee that voluntary recruitment and the flow of Russian prisoners will be sufficient to cover this target. This means that inevitably, Putin may have to proceed with a new mobilization. It remains to be seen exactly how many soldiers he will need to create so many new units by the end of this year. With the victory achieved now in March in the elections, Putin managed to consolidate his complete control over the entire Russian state machinery. And since he no longer has to worry about elections for the next 6 years, he will have a clear path to do whatever he wants in Russian society to achieve his goal, which is to recruit the largest number of soldiers to launch them into his expansionist war and territorial conquest in Ukraine. And if you are not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe and activate the notification bell to not miss any news, criticisms, ideas, or suggestions. You can leave them in the comments.
В соответствии с решением Верховного Главнокомандующего продолжается поступательное развитие вооруженных сил России и повышение их боевых возможностей. Сформированный армейский корпус, мотострелковая дивизия, Днепровская речная флотилия и бригада речных катеров флотилии. До конца года планируется сформировать 2 общевойсковые армии и 30 соединений, в том числе 14 дивизий и 16 бригад. Продолжен совершенствование боевого численного состава российской армии с размерно возникшим угрозам военной безопасности страны.